Good morning. I'm Megan Griffin, and I'm here helping out Susan Hebel today. Welcome to the first summer service. We are glad you're here in this slightly cooler and much needed rainy day, and greatly appreciated time to spend with friends and family. Summer services will be lay-led most of the time and more laid back. We will start at 10 o'clock and be outside in the conversation circle when the weather allows. There is always a lot going on in the church community, so please take a look at your news and notes that comes to your email every Friday. If you are new or visiting, welcome to the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. And if you want to sign up for news and notes, please see one of us after the service and we can sign the visitor's book. Please put your electronic devices in worship mode, but feel free to take pictures. If you are here with us online on YouTube, welcome. And please subscribe and say hi to us in the chat feature. Today is the last chance to visit the First People of Illinois exhibit on display now in the Alice Warren Room downstairs. The exhibit, which aims to educate and inspire others to learn about the rich history of the indigenous people of the Midwest, is on loan to UCH from the First Congregational Church of LaGrange Ministry of Missions. View the exhibit in person in the Alice Warren Room, which is in the lower level of the church building. And please join us after the service for coffee, some light snacks, and enjoyable conversation. Now please join us in reading today's chalice lighting words, which are on your piece of paper that you should have received as you walked in. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other.
morning. We are going to forego the joys and sorrows portion of our service because we aren't set up for it. We thought we were going to be outside. So for our meditation today, I'd like to ask you to put your feet firmly on the floor. Relax your shoulders. Close your eyes if you'd like. And as you breathe in the joy around you, the joys in your life, and breathe out the sorrows. Our meditation words are by Joyce Rupp. In the hurry, in the rush, simple things missed, blessings denied, beauties ignored. In the calm, in the quiet, simple things received, mystery unfolds, happiness blooms. And now I ask you to join us in singing our first hymn, which is number 38, Morning Has Broken. The words are in your order of service because we thought we were going to be outside, but if you'd like to use your hymnal, it's number 38. Please stand if you are able.
We have two quotes today. The first one, George Gordon by Lord Byron from Don Juan, Canto number 3 from 1812. But words are things, and a small drop of ink, falling like dew, upon a thought, produces that which makes thousands, perhaps millions, think. And the second one is by Emily Dickinson. I know nothing in the world that has as much power as a word. Sometimes I write one, and I look at it until it begins to shine.
It will come as no surprise to anyone who knows me that I have always been enamored with words. Not just with words, but with phrases and sentences and poems, enamored with the beauty, the humor, and clarity they can invoke, enamored with their potential to create order out of chaos, to crystallize meaning, to challenge assumptions, to connect the reader or listener with ideas and people and cultures across time and space. I like nothing more than a well-turned phrase that makes me smile and say, yes, that's it. I actually started collecting words in elementary school. I would cut out words and phrases from magazines and keep them in a little box by my bed. I liked putting them together, kind of like the magnetic poetry sets you see now, which obviously I should have invented. And I enjoyed pondering the various meanings and implications of the arrangements I made. And of course, as a child, I adored the magical language and the life lessons of Shel Silverstein, Dr. Seuss, and A.A. Milne, like in this conversation in the classic Winnie the Pooh. "What day is it?" asked Pooh. "It's today," squeaked Piglet. "My favorite day," said Pooh. Shouldn't today always be our favorite day? As my reading expanded, I copied down phrases from books and passages from poems that spoke to me. I clearly recall discovering John Donne's 17th century poem, "No Man is an Island." I was barely 13 years old, and our 19-year-old next door had recently died in a car accident while at college. He had been a promising and charismatic young man who was like a brother to me, and his death shook me to the core. Soon after his funeral, I stumbled on Donne's poem, and my heart stood still. I wrote it out on a note card and tucked it in my wallet. Here are a few lines which I've adapted for the 21st century. I'm sure you'll recognize them. "No one is an island entire of itself. Every person is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any person's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee." Donne's poem reflected my grief, but it also provided a hopeful and convincing statement about human connection, really about the interdependent web of existence. And it's also a call to action, an insistence that we must recognize that our shared humanity is the essence of life. We need each other. We are responsible for each other, and therein lies meaning and purpose. For over 50 years, I have filled notebooks and Word documents with words I love because I believe that well-crafted language clarifies and focuses perspective on the important things in life, things simultaneously universal and personal. Last summer, after one of our summer services outside in the conversational circle on a beautiful sunny day, some of us were talking about words from which we've found comfort, inspiration, and wisdom. Words that reflect our core values, that help us understand who we are as individuals and as members of the human race, and who we want people to understand, or what we want people to understand about us. Our conversation reminded me of the best-selling 2012 book titled Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Some of you may know it. In this young adult novel, a fictional fifth-grade teacher named Mr. Brown begins the school year by introducing to the class the idea of precepts, which he defines as, quote, rules about really important things, like a motto, like a famous quote, like a line from a fortune cookie, any saying or ground rule that can motivate you, end quote. Palacio structures the novel around the precepts Mr. Brown shares each month with his class. In the wake of the book's success, Palacio published a companion text called 365 Days of Wonder, which I have here, which I'm happy to share with people downstairs later, for which the author, as Mr. Brown, collected precepts submitted by actual young readers. From that book is the following passage, which I find particularly relatable. In it, the fictional teacher explains how he discovered the value of precepts. As a college student, he says, I came across this wonderful line: we carry within us the wonders we seek around us. The beauty and power of that line stopped me cold for some reason. Maybe it was exactly what I needed to hear at that moment in my life. I wrote the line down on a slip of paper and taped it onto my wall, where it remained until I graduated. and then I carried it in my wallet. My wife had it laminated and framed for me when we got married. It was the first of many precepts in my life, which I began collecting in a scrapbook. I even wrote down the Nike ad line, "Just do it." You can draw inspiration from anywhere after all. He goes on to say, ever since then, I've used precepts in my classroom. Merriam-Webster defines a precept as a command or principle intended especially as a general rule of action. For my students, I've always defined it in simpler terms. Precepts are words to live by. In our informal conversation last year, I discovered that a lot of us collect or create words to live by. Some of us even keep those words important to us in our wallets. They may be words from a song or book or advice from someone important in our lives, or they may be words of our own formulation, lessons we've learned or reflections on experiences. By the way, it was around this point in the conversation that Karen McDowell nudged me and said, "Susan, you should really do a service about this." So here I am. Anyway, in my wallet, I now carry the Serenity Prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and here's the important part, and the wisdom to know the difference. When Linda Rio included those in the memorial service for her mother, Carol, I cut them out and tucked them in my wallet to have handy when stress, apprehension, or self-doubt creep in. But you don't need a wallet. There are lots of ways we hold and share words of wisdom. At my uncle's funeral a few years ago, he wanted congregants to receive a bookmark with his precept on it, which goes like this. I said somebody should do something about that, and then I realized that I am somebody. It was perfect for him. He was admirably a real booster for his and my hometown who dedicated time, energy, and money to civic development. He did stuff. In sharing this ethos with his friends and family, he invited us to reflect on the central purpose of his own life and therefore on the central purposes of each of our own lives. Here are a couple of other examples. On his way to winning his first Grand Slam tennis tournament, Stan Wawrinka acquired a motivating tattoo on his forearm, a quote by Irish poet Samuel Beckett that reads, "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again." And if you watch Ted Lasso, you might know where I'm going with this, you know that the first thing Ted does when he becomes coach of a struggling soccer club in the UK is to post a sign in the locker room that reads, anybody want to help? Believe. The sign, the word, becomes central to the team's relationship with their new coach and with each other. And just this past Friday, I heard an old song on the radio that used to get me moving on those days when I just wanted to stay in bed. The song and lyrics are by Carole King. I'm not going to sing them to you, you're welcome. But the key phrases go like this. You've got to get up in the morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart. Then people are going to treat you better. You're going to find, yes you will, that you're beautiful as you feel. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from some folks who'd like to share the words that they keep in their real or metaphorical wallets. But first, I'm going to read something Dennis Sajit wrote for today as evidence that wisdom comes to us at all stages of life if we are open to it. Here are Dennis's words. My wife Janice used to say I was a fine example of determination verging on stupidity. More about that later, he writes. On Memorial Day, my family attended a program at Pioneer Park in Plainfield. As the program ended, an officer asked if I wanted to ride to the car in their ATV. No, I think I'll walk. Halfway to the car, a female officer asked if she could call and get me a ride. No, I'm fine. I made it to the car without a major incident. But what had I accomplished? At best, the first officer was thinking, stubborn old man. The female officer was visibly upset. My family had to stand around waiting for me. The energy I used could have gone toward a more worthwhile enterprise, and Janice was once again proven right. So what would my words of advice be? Accept assistance when it makes sense to do so. Don't let your ego get in the way. Thank you, Dennis, for that. We're going to hear from some of our other church members who share their guiding words and offer a brief explanation of why these words matter to them. But I want you to be thinking of your own words as well, and you'll notice that you received a note card today and a pen. And we'll talk a little bit more later about what you're going to do with that, so you can have this be a very collaborative service. First, we're going to hear from Karen.
Thank you, Susan. That was very interesting to hear your backstory. I don't know where I got the idea to put some, this is my wallet. My phone is my wallet. And I don't know where I got that idea, but I do remember years ago, I was in an emergency room, and behind the curtain, they were feverishly working over some other patient. And of course, over in the corner was an officer going through the man's wallet. We all carry our license, our registration, our prescription drugs, perhaps, and I thought, if I were unable to speak for myself, what would I want anybody else to know about me? Don't send a priest into my hospital room, it's okay. And so that's where I came up with my little, this is it. So these are my sources of inspiration. The abiding love of my daughter, Christine. The support of a few friends, the sense of self-reliance, the miracles and beauty of nature, the message of music, the escape in books, the meditative comfort of knitting, the moments of creativity, and the warmth and gratitude for it all. And then it occurred to me that I was missing something. And it'll come later in the service, and what I was missing was my favorite song. And I'm assuming that all of you have some favorite song. Some couples say it's their song, whatever that means. And so we'll sing it later, so I'll be back.
Thank you, Karen. And next, if Suzanne, did you want to share yours?
So probably for at least half of my career, I had this card up on the wall over my desk. It was done in sort of a Zen style of calligraphy, and it had just a very Spartan decor to it, but it said, do your work, then step back, the only path to serenity. And it was very helpful to me because I worked in a field that we had a lot of deadlines, and sometimes the amount of work coming in was enough to just make you want to put your head down on the desk and weep because you just knew you were never going to get through it in the time you had to do it in. So my inclination would always be to just keep working as late as I needed to get the work done. But there's that law of diminishing returns, right? When you do that, the more tired you become, the worse your output and the more mistakes you make. So I would glance up at that and say, yes, it's time to step away for the night. It'll be here tomorrow, and you'll be in a better place to do it. And that's also carried me well through my crafting life. When you're in a frustrating point and something isn't working, put it down and come back to it later. And it's amazing because usually a difficult problem becomes easy at that point. But this morning I was reminded that it doesn't always work quite the way I need it to, and I need to work on this serenity point, and that is the torrential rain. I've been waiting for this for a few weeks. We get a basement that weeps when it gets like this, and I was racing around this morning down there, pulling stuff out of harm's way and getting things up, and I did my work and I stepped back, but I haven't quite achieved serenity on that point, and so it's still valid even though I'm not sitting in an office working full-time anymore, so.
Thanks, Suzanne. So I was reminded this morning, and you reminded me of it as well, of words that my Scottish Presbyterian grandmother used to say. She'd quote Bobby Burns at every opportunity. And we were sort of scrambling this morning because we were set up to go outside, and then we had to readjust. And my grandmother, Gladys Ruby was her name, would say, "The best laid plans of mice and men gang after glee." Yeah. So Dave, I think you have something for us as well.
Well, Suzanne and I must be well matched because without discussing this in advance, we have very similar words. In the 90s, I was looking for work, and you send the applications in and you go to interviews, and I always wondered, am I doing enough? Shouldn't I be doing more? They say that looking for a job should be a full-time employment, and I got a job, and ever since then, just as Sue said, there are days when there's so much. You set yourself 5 goals for the day, and by the end of the day, if you've reached 4, you're doing a good day. So this is not in my wallet, but it's in a bookmark, and it is, if you've endeavored to do your best in all that matters most, when the day is done, you should wait the results in peace.
Thanks, Dave. And Julia.
Good morning, all. This will not surprise you. I have 2 favorite things that have to do with something with music. The first is one of my favorite Robert Frost poems. We have sung it a lot in the Celebration Singers, "The Road Not Taken," and I think all of us in this room could relate to having roads that you looked at and you decided to take another route. I'll just read a few of the words, maybe all of them, because I love them so much. "2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less, I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." I'm sure we can all relate to that. And then my other quote is just a small quote that I've often told people when I've asked them to come and sing in my choir, and they say they can't. All God's children have a place in the choir. That's right, some sing up and some sing higher, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't apply to just music, it applies to anything. There's always something that one can do to make a difference, and you just have to be open to the opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. Now we'll hear from Anita.
Many years ago, I used to sit in the living room on a chair. Next to me, every Sunday, was a member of our church, Art Adelberg. And we used to have some salty conversations. And he would say, "What is the purpose of life? There is no purpose in life. We're born, we live, and we die. What else is there to it?" And a few years after that, I came across this quote: "The purpose of life is to have a life of purpose." So when you think about that, you think, I have to do something spectacular to make my life purposeful and meaningful. It can be very simple, though, and I'd like to read an excerpt from Charlotte's Web that tells us how simple a purpose in life can be. Charlotte is a spider, and she's dying, and she has helped Wilbur the pig to live by writing in her web wonderful things about Wilbur. And so she's dying, and she says, "Wilbur, the world is for you to enjoy now." And she says, "These are precious days for you." Charlotte stopped. A moment later, a tear came to Wilbur's eye. "Oh, Charlotte," he said, "to think that when I first met you, I thought you were cruel and bloodthirsty." When he recovered from his emotion, he spoke again. "Why did you do all this for me, to save my life? I don't deserve it. I've never done anything for you. You, Wilbur, have been my friend," replied Charlotte. "That in itself is a tremendous thing. I wove my webs for you because I liked you. After all, what is a life anyway? We're born, we live a little while, and then we die. A spider's life can't help being something of a mess with all this trapping and eating flies. By helping you, perhaps I was trying to lift up my life a trifle. Heaven knows anyone's life can stand a little of that." "Well," said Wilbur, "I'm no good at making speeches. I haven't got your gift for words, but you have saved me, and I would gladly give my life for you. I really would. The purpose of life is to have a friend."
One of my all-time favorite books, which I feel everyone should read about every 5 or 10 years, by the way. Now we'll hear from Norma.
I have this bookmark in my bedroom. I look at it frequently. It's not in my wallet, but it's there, and I thought I would share it. "Always there is a beginning, a new day, a new month, a new season, a new year. Forever the old passes away and newness emerges from the richness that was. Nothing is ever lost in the many changes time brings. What was in some way will be, though changed in form. Know this moment is a beginning, and our lives, individually and together, are full of richness, of freshness, of hope, and of promise." Does anyone recognize this? Ed Searle. Yes, thank you.
Julia, your words on the Robert Frost piece are so relevant to the two thoughts that I have from a couple of teachers that I revere as they encouraged me to take this road less taken, or less walked to get here. And the first one is from a teacher, by Walt Whitman. In the preface to his Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman calls on readers to re-examine all you have been told at school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your own soul and your flesh shall be a great poem. That's Walt Whitman. And then from my second teacher, who is in this book, Channing. This is his first book, original. And I had it marked, so it must have meant something to me. So Channing says, "We must never forget that our rational nature is the greatest gift of God. For this we owe him and our chief gratitude. It is a greater gift than any outward aid or benefaction, and no doctrine which degrades it can come from its author."
And for those of you who don't know, Ed Searle was our minister here for 30-plus years, right? Is there anyone else who'd like to share words of wisdom that they carry in their metaphorical wallets? Come on up.
I think I can just stand here. Many years ago, I came across this phrase, and it reflected my feelings so much that I incorporated it into my email signature. So anyone who receives an email from me sees this at the bottom of my email. Neither genius, fame, nor love show the greatness of the soul. Only kindness can do that.
Thank you, Jay. Has anyone else got something they'd like to share? Come on up.
Many of you know that the 3 genes that I carry for macular degeneration got activated by COVID, as a result of which I have a lot of difficulty reading, for instance. And one of the things that happened was that I stopped driving for several months. I went to the Midwest Institute for something, and they tested and tested and tested and tested me, and finally said it would be safe for me to drive in the daytime if I were very careful. And they said, if you hit anything, you will lose your license. So I began to think about it, and I began to think about my driving, because for all of my life, I got my license when I was 16, I've driven on automatic pilot much of the time, and I began to realize that I can't do that anymore. So the words of wisdom that I have are, don't hurry. Because when you hurry, you make mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, come on, Nancy. Nancy's making her way up.
Oh, this is a small phrase that I say sometimes with the word unfortunately or sometimes luckily in front of it, and it is, there's room for us all. Because if you hear someone complaining about immigration, luckily there's room for us all. If you know someone who disagrees with you politically, unfortunately, there's room for us all. Thank you.
Anyone else like to share some words that they look to? Come on up, Sandy. Sandy was part of this conversation last summer, by the way.
This is different. All right. Well, I had this phrase from the Bible about 20 years ago when I came into a new apartment, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. And so I put this right on the door. So, oh, my phone just went out. But, so every time I would see it, it would be Galatians 6:9, do not worry. So in due time, it would, it would come, this phone turn on, that everything would come out right. I know I paraphrased that, but I've always had that in my heart, and it's downstairs, and that's been in my heart, and now it's in my phone. But I find that messages in the wallet or in your heart are very important to keep. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Anyone else?
Many of my words are from Mary Oliver, and the ones that came to me this morning were, what are you going to do with your one wild and crazy life?
So I'm a big sucker for inspirational quotes, especially from ancient Greece. So I found this very good definition of what is discipline. We all kind of know what discipline means, but can you really define it? And I think I found a very good one, which says that discipline is the difference between what you want now versus what you want most. I found that really captured it.
Okay, I think Megan's going to share with us, and then we have time for maybe one more.
As many as you know, I work with kids with dyslexia, and Margaret Bird Rawson was one of the first people to do a lot of things with dyslexic folks, and hers is with education of go as fast as you can, but as slow as you must.
Okay, is there anyone else?
I was deployed to Iraq in 2003 to 2004, and I think I was 20, turned 21 over there at the time, and it was the first time I was really experiencing hardship. But I also took on a mantra, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And that's become like another mantra of another nonprofit, so I think a lot of soldiers took that on as well. And then part to what someone else was saying, every day I would read, for everything there is a season, and just got me through.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. That's awesome. And I'm sure that there are some others of you that have something you'd like to share. You did get a note card and a pen, and I want to encourage you to write down the precept, your words to live by. If you have the source, put it down. It'd be nice if you put your name so we know who's doing what. There are 2 boards down in the Alice Warren room for you with some push pens, so you can pin yours on there, and we'll keep those up for a couple of weeks so people can look at them and add to them. So I encourage you to jot down the advice that you would give to the next generation for how to live a good life, or words that help you get through a difficult day, or that give you inspiration, or that make you just say, yes, that's it. To paraphrase Seneca the Younger, a Stoic philosopher from ancient Rome, I like to think of these precepts as seeds, which are little things that have the potential to do much good, to contribute to a healthy life, and to provide sustenance for future generations. And now, as an interlude, Dennis will share the wisdom of Paul McCartney with us.
Church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with people around us, and with the world. Thank you for your generosity.
Music. It's so important in so many ways. And as I said, I realized that I needed to add to my list in my wallet my favorite song, which you have printed, no surprise. You all know John Denver's song. I heard that, I searched it and found out that he was in a very, very bitter cold winter and was missing the sunshine and kind of feeling blue. And the inspiration for this song came to him in the dead of winter. I like it because it's one that I always sang at bedtime when my grandkids were little. Can't do that anymore as teenagers. I also sang it for my mother when she was in hospice, and it just never fails to make me feel better. And we're going to sing it today unaccompanied, but we're going to change the tempo. We're going to do it in 3/4 waltz time because that makes me happy. And if you are so moved to get up and move around in the aisles, you know, life is too short not to just let loose once in a while, isn't it? So come on, you know, we can do this. Without Jamie here, we can do this. So the tempo is going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, sunshine on my shoulders. You got that? Now Dennis is going to give me I'm in bad voice today. So Dennis, what is my note? Here we go. And Julia's going to help us out to the rhythm. So if you want to get up, get up. Here we go. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Move it along. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a day that I could give you, give to you a day just like today, rain and all, we love it. And if I had a song that I could sing for you, move it, I'd sing a song to make you feel this way. Again, sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me high. Sunshine on the water, you're not moving, looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a tale that I could tell you, I'd tell a tale sure to make you smile. And if I had a wish that I could wish for you, I'd make a wish for sunshine all the while. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. You don't look happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. Thank you, you made my day. Now find your song.
Please join us in extinguishing our chalice. The words are on your paper in the back, adapted from the words by Amanda Alice Ullman. Together, we have enjoyed the warmth and beauty of stories and of music, of this flame and this special community. As our chalice flame is extinguished this morning, we can still remember that its glow is carried within us. We can use our inner lights and this flame to kindle new sparks throughout our lives and in the world. May the spirit of peace and togetherness bless all of our lives.
And for our closing words, I offer another quote that I store in my metaphorical wallet of wisdom. These words are from a very wise and fictional teenager named Ferris Bueller. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.